Okay, so welcome everybody to the 2021 Capital Improvement and Equipment Grants, and welcome again to another PCF webinar. We've been on a roll with these the past few weeks, but thanks for joining me for this one. My name is David Bender. I know a lot of you on the line. I'm the Director of Grants and Projects here at PCF. My email address is on the screen as well as my direct line. For this grant cycle, I'm open to discuss application details, and I can read over potential proposals, brainstorms, kind of the whole shebang until September 23rd. After that point, I'll only be able to answer technical questions about the grant portal. So if you're having trouble uploading a document or you don't know how to do something inside the portal, I can answer that right up until the deadline. Today we'll be going over eligibility for this grant, some details about the application, required forms and documentation that you'll be able to submit, how they're evaluated, and then we'll have time for questions and answers. So our capital improvement and equipment grants are up to $20,000. They cover one-time purchases of major equipment and facility improvement. So these are not program costs. So they're not service delivery costs, but rather what equipment and stuff that helps you deliver the services. So if you need wheelchairs to make your building more accessible, that's a capital improvement cost. If you are an organization that provides wheelchairs for clients to use in their homes, that's a service cost, and that would be considered, that wouldn't be considered eligible for this grant. You have to have 501c3 status, and that status you have to have had for a year, and you must be delivering programming for a year. Hospitals, schools, animal welfare organizations, governments, houses of worship, retirement communities, and other grant-making foundations are not eligible to apply. Sometimes the foundation label gets iffy, so if you have a question about that, please reach out to me. If you're umbrellaed, so you have a parent organization and there are subsidiaries, only one of those subsidiaries can apply. And you must be a direct service provider, so we do not fund advocacy work. And the deadline for this is September 30th at 11:59 p.m. That should read EDT. That is a very strict deadline. Absolutely no late submissions. So the application is completed completely online on our grant portal, which you can access through the grants portion of our website. I imagine a lot of you are familiar with it. If you aren't, reach out and I'll get you on board. What you need for this grant is an account in the grant portal and Microsoft Excel to complete documents. A lot of the application is kept close to the operating grant application, and you may reuse content for this application, provided it's relevant to your capital request. So if you want to save time and you have a capital need for the same program, you can reuse content. It's a different committee and the processes are kept separate. We want to make it easy. That includes the documents you upload for the operating grant. So I'll get into that later, but for example, the board list, just upload the same one. And if you have questions of, can I reuse this? Does this fit for this? Reach out to me. I can give you some guidance on that. So the application begins with a section about telling your story. It includes a brief program description. So despite this not being for service costs, we want to see what does your organization do? And if you run multiple programs, where does it fit in that? So what will the capital request do? So if you are a museum and you need wheelchairs to make your museum more accessible, talk about your museum's programming here. And then we also ask for the story of a client served. So someone that has been impacted personally by your services. This is not your mission. This is how you carry out your mission. What actual activities you do that make an impact on your client. And then where does PCF and the capital project fit in? Some tips are to dive right into your story. You don't need to restate your mission. You state your mission statement in the first part of the application. You want to strike some balance between prose and hard facts, incorporating a tiny bit of data into the application, into the story, makes it more impactful. It allows you to see the individual impact as well as the wide scale, the scale of your issue. if that makes sense. So you can incorporate a bit of data that shows how widespread the issue is that you're addressing. And look at the sample in the application. And FYI, as I see questions in the chat, I'll address those at the end. So feel free to put questions in the chat. After you tell your story, there's grant request specifics. You give a statement of need. So just what are the need for your services in the community? What data is available to show that your services are necessary? Details of the capital project. So how many it'll serve annually, what's the lifetime of it, as well as if it increased operating costs. So let's say you're adding a van, you're buying a van, and that van will need maintenance. How will you cover the maintenance of that van? Outcomes and measurement and evaluation. This will make or break your application. I've said it with operating, and I'll repeat it here. What are you tracking for your clients? How are you measuring the impact of your services on your clients? We are not prescriptive of what the outcomes should be. We just want there to be outcomes. And how does the capital project help deliver on those outcomes? If this capital project is far away from your clients, so let's say it's for your admin building, I would really recommend not submitting an application. I know that's blunt, but this is our most competitive grant cycle by far. And the closer this capital project is to your client and the outcomes, the stronger it will be. So I'm real, please consider that before putting in an application. And then coordination and partnership. So how do you work with other organizations to not duplicate your services? So that's the purpose of our coordination and partnership question. Are you duplicating services? Oh, no? So tell us how you aren't and who you work with to make sure that's not happening. Estimates and bids. So we do want estimates, and this can be as easy as Amazon, looking onto websites. If it's for, computer and IT equipment, that could be as easy as comparing prices across two websites. 2 or more estimates are required if the project is over 10,000. And you can't, I should have said this at the beginning, you can include multiple capital requests in here. So let's say you need iPads for telehealth and let's say computer routers. You can include both. And now let's say it's a van that's over 10,000, you need 2 bids. So if there's multiple components and each of those components is under 10,000, you don't have to include multiple estimates for each component. I hope that makes sense. If one component is over 10,000, then you need multiple estimates. And if you're unclear about that, please ask. I can explain further in the Q&A. So required documents, you need a Form 990, the most recently filed. If you have gotten an extension for your filing, please note that, because then I don't have to go hunting down a more recent 990. Your most recent audit, if it's available. If you do not have an audit, we understand for some, depending on the operating budget size, you may not need it. Explain that. Your most recent board approved budget. If you hadn't done an operating grant application this year, you'll see we changed that. We no longer require you to fill out a budget template, but please, I would recommend consolidating your budget. So please don't upload an Excel worksheet with 20 different tabs covering your different programs. Some consolidation would really be helpful in that. A board of directors list, we have a standard download form that is an Excel spreadsheet that asks for the board name, their position, the affiliation of, where they work. And if they're retired or they're not working right now, you can just put community member. Their attendance rate for the past 12 months. So that's how many meetings they would have been required to go to in the past 12 months and how many they went to. And that would be a percentage. If they are a newer board member, so let's say they've only been on for 6 months, you would put the percentage for how many how many meetings they would have had to go to during those 6 months. So if they've been on for 6 months and you have monthly meetings and they've gone to all 6, that's 100% attendance. And then whether or not they live in Pinellas County. We also have a demographic information sheet where we ask for the gender identity and race and ethnicity of your staff leadership, board leadership, and clients served. And there is a diversity, equity, and inclusion section of the application where you speak about how do you ensure your organization is representative of the clients you are serving. And is there a feedback loop? Is there ways that the client experience, their lived experience, influences the programming and the staff and board leadership? So how these grants are evaluated. This is one committee that is made up of some of our board members as well as community members that have experience in the nonprofit space. And there are kind of 4 dimensions. A clear story. So do we know what you do and how you impact your clients? That's what comes through with that story, that you know your impact on your clients. The need. Does that community need exist? And does this capital improvement or equipment project, is it necessary to help you deliver on those services and therefore resolve the community need? The solution to the problem. So again, going back to that impact on your client, are you tracking that? Can we see it? And then are you financially sound through your audit, 990, and budget? So I know I went fast and furious there. I'll take questions now. So first, the IT equipment. So you can purchase IT equipment and technology. Subscriptions, I'll have to get back to you on that. We would purchase hardware more than software. Unless it's, I would really just say hardware. So, computers, routers, tablets. I wouldn't really we would consider subscriptions an ongoing service cost. I will go to the diversity section now. The diversity page can be reused. That is part of anything from the operating grant that is relevant to this grant request can be used. Here, let's see. I will go to the DEI section of the application now, and I'll just go over it question by question. Just one second. Can I get a thumbs up? Can everyone see this? The screen? Or is it the PowerPoint? Or hold on one second. Okay, good. So with this section, we're asking for, again, the board and staff leadership, and I'll open the form itself. Sorry for my jumpiness today. So here's the demographic section. So again, organization name, your board, the number of board leaders, and board leadership is chair, vice chair, treasurer. It could be chairs of subcommittees as well. The board members that have the most influence on governing the organization. And the number of staff leaders. So that could be executive director, C-suite, vice presidents, any role at or above director. So those who are influential on the programming and operations. And then the population served. We use demographic data categories according to how GuideStar prescribes that you collect diversity data. So this is gender identity, female, male, non-binary, declined to state, or we don't include it. Transgender, cisgender, again, declined to state, or we don't collect it. And then race and ethnicity categories. And these are taken from GuideStar. And I'll go back to the application. Can we see the application? Great. So you upload that worksheet here. The population you serve in Pinellas County. So this is towns and cities in which your program is run. If you're a countywide program, say that. If how many you serve in Pinellas County, duplicated and unduplicated. So for example, if you have a food pantry, duplicated and unduplicated, that's a bad example because that's very hard to capture and we usually don't ask for the unduplicated number. A literacy program, and you want computers to help with e-learning. You have 10 students that you see 5 times each. That's 50 duplicated people and 10 unduplicated. Then community representation. How does your organization ensure that your board and staff are representative of Pinellas County diversity with gender identity and race? So do you have a board matrix that you use to make sure you're getting different parts of the community? Are you intentional with your hiring practices? That's what you would put here. And then other indicators. So for example, if you are an organization that focuses on LGBTQ rights, or LGBTQ healthcare, let's say, you might be tracking sexual orientation. We don't have that on our demographic data form, but you can certainly include that data here because it's relevant to your mission and who you serve. And that we don't want to be exclusive, like we don't want to exclude data that is important to your mission and who you serve. And I'll go to other questions now. Requesting reimbursement. So this is not a reimbursement grant. We will not do reimbursement. It is for new purchases. The earliest date for purchasing is January 1st. This grant, I'm sorry I didn't announce this. It's awarded in December and checks are sent out in December to be spent January 1st. And then for the board worksheet, lives and works in Pinellas County. Yeah, so let's say they live in Hillsborough, but they work in Pinellas, you would answer yes to that question. And vice versa. They live in Pinellas, but work in Hillsborough, it would still be a yes. Anyone can, if there are any other questions, you can put them in the chat or unmute yourself and ask. Value of in-kind goods. So in-kind goods on this application are only relevant to this project. So it's not for your whole organization. Let's say you're expanding your food pantry and you get an in-kind construction from a construction company. They give some goods in kind. You would only include that. We're not asking for an organization-wide in-kind breakdown. So that's different from the operating grant application. A paid staff member. So I was asked, is a paid staff member required? If you're asking if you are an entirely volunteer-run organization, no. We have funded a volunteer-run organization before where it's just board members. That is okay. There would have to be strong programming, of course, but certainly being all volunteer is not mutually exclusive to strong program. They're not mutually exclusive. Any other questions?
Yeah, this is Vernon Bryant. I was just how many actual grants you end up doing each time?
This is a very competitive grant. We received, in all transparency, 60 something applications, and I think 13 or 14 were funded. These projects, there is no partial funding with this grant. It's all or nothing because we want to see the project fully carried out, which is why it's so competitive and from the pool available. And so that's why I was pretty insistent before on really consider how important this grant is to your clients and to your organization because it is so competitive. And it is, it takes time to fill out the application. Any other questions? Going once? Okay. So that's all I have for you today. Feel free to email me with any questions. And if things are a little crazy around here right now, I think a lot of you know we're doing CARES funding as well. So if you don't get a response, email again, please do. You won't be bothering me. I want to help you as much as possible through this process. And yeah, so I'm here to support you how I can. Thanks for joining, everyone. Oh, last question. Can we request funds for a portion of your project? Yes, it can be partial. Please include information. There is a section, if you can't find another place for it, at the end. Anything else to share? That's where I would put where you're getting your other funding. This is not meant to be if it's $100,000 project and we're your first 20,000, it's likely not to get funded. So we would want to see where you're securing other funding and how much has been secured already. Okay. Awesome. So thank you for joining, everyone. I'm glad. Looks like people were happy with it. I'm glad. And stay safe, everyone. And it's good to see you all. Take care.
Thanks, David.
Bye-bye.